Welcome back to the deep dive. We are continuing our analysis, step 4 actually, into this really big question. Are we in an AI bubble right now?
Yeah, it's a huge question.
We've looked at funding, the hype, the real-world use cases, but today we're hitting the history books, sort of.
That's right. What we want to do is use the 2008 financial crisis, the housing bubble, when all those financial models basically lied as a kind of template.
A warning system.
Exactly, a warning system. We're going to dissect what went wrong then, the mechanics of that collapse.
And then see how those same vulnerabilities might be showing up today in AI.
Precisely. Map them directly onto the risks we see emerging in this AI-driven economy.
Because the core idea, and this is what's kind of chilling, is that it's not just a vague similarity.
Oh, I don't know.
The fundamental dynamic, this what we're calling the architecture of recklessness, it feels the same.
It really does. You've got this misplaced faith, almost blind trust in complex systems nobody fully understands.
Opaque systems, black boxes.
Right. And then you throw in a whole network of financial incentives that are just completely misaligned with long-term safety.
Okay, so let's show people exactly where those echoes are. Where does the 2008 story begin?
Well, to really get the AI risk today, you first need to grasp how the system failed back in '08. It all started with so-called financial innovation, a kind of magic trick.
Okay, the magic trick. Securitization.
Yes, securitization. So you had all these individual mortgages, many of them subprime, quite risky.
And they bundled them up.
Bundled thousands of them together into things called mortgage-backed securities, or MBS. Made them easier to sell.
But it didn't stop there, did it?
Oh, no. That was just step one. Then the banks took slices of these MBS pools, often mixing different risk levels.
Yeah, and bundled them again.
Bundled them again into even more complex instruments, collateralized debt obligations, CDOs. It was just layers upon layers of abstraction.
Making it harder and harder to see the actual risk underneath, like hiding the bad apples.
Exactly. Some people called it ratings laundering, trying to turn risky loans into investment gold.
And the key to that gold was the AAA rating. How on earth did these bundles of, frankly, often dodgy loans get the top safety rating?
That's the heart of the illusion. The credit rating agencies, Moody's, S&P, they slap AAA ratings on, get this 70 to 80% of the tranches within these CDOs.
80%. Even the slices made up of the riskier bits.
Even those. So investors, big institutions, pension funds, they weren't digging into the details of the mortgages anymore. They were just buying the AAA rating.
And assuming that meant safety.
Total safety. They figured, it's AAA, we can't lose money. It created this massive, system-wide false sense of security. Blind faith.
Okay, so there must have been some math behind this, some model giving it a veneer of legitimacy.
There was. Enter David X. Lee and his Gaussian copula formula. This was the mathematical model that suddenly made it seem possible to price the risk of these incredibly complex CDOs.
It looked elegant, sophisticated.
Very elegant. And it allowed the market for these derivatives to explode. But it had a fatal flaw.
Which was?
Not the math itself, interestingly, it was the core assumption. The model assumed that the correlations between defaults, how likely mortgages were to fail together, were stable, constant.
Oh.
Yeah. And crucially, it had what's called zero-tail dependence. Basically, it treated the possibility of a widespread, simultaneous wave of defaults, systemic risk, as almost zero. Statistically insignificant.
Wait, hang on. So the model used to price the risk of everything collapsing.
Yeah.
Assumed everything couldn't collapse at the same time.
Pretty much, yes. It couldn't see the very crisis it was helping to create because its fundamental assumptions ruled it out.
That's astounding.
It is. Like Mazes himself admitted later, very few people understand the essence of the model. And Nassim Taleb, author of The Black Swan, he just said flatly, the thing never worked. But the lure of profits, the elegance of the formula, it trumped common sense across the financial system.
And this flawed trust was then turbocharged by the incentives, the architecture of recklessness.
Absolutely. Start with the mortgage originators. The infamous originate-to-distribute model.
Meaning they made the loan.
And immediately sold it off to an investment bank to be packaged into an MBS or CDO. They had zero skin in the game regarding whether the borrower could actually repay.
Just get the loan out the door, collect the fee, pass the risk on.
Exactly. Volume was everything. Quality, not their problem anymore.
And then higher up the chain, the banks, the traders.
It got worse. compensation, bonuses, it was all tied to short-term profits and the sheer volume of deals done.
No downside if it all blew up later.
Virtually none.
Yeah.
There were no real clawback provisions, so bankers pocketed huge bonuses for deals that looked profitable one year, even if they generated catastrophic losses the next. The incentive was purely short-term gain.
And the rating agencies playing their part?
A massive conflict of interest. The issuer pays model. The very banks creating these toxic CDOs were paying the agencies to rate them.
So the agencies had an incentive to give good ratings to keep the business flowing.
Precisely. And the internal cynicism was, frankly, shocking. There's that infamous internal email from an S&P employee.
Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah. Let's hope we are all wealthy and retired by the time this house of cards falters.
Wow. Just wow.
It shows how the drive for short-term profit just completely sidelined prudence, oversight, everything.
So, okay. The structure was flawed, the incentives were perverse, the models were blind. But surely someone saw the warning signs. Things must have started to wobble.
They did. By 2005, delinquency rates on subprime mortgages were already climbing sharply. Foreclosures surged almost 100% between 2006 and 2007. Leverage ratios at banks like Lehman Brothers were insane, like 31-to-1.
So why didn't the alarm bells ring louder? How did the bubble keep inflating?
Narrative capture. There is this incredibly powerful, deeply ingrained belief. U.S. home prices never fall on a national level. It was treated almost like a law of physics.
A comforting myth.
A very comforting, very profitable myth. And it blinded almost everyone, regulators, market participants, homeowners. Even when the data screamed danger, top officials like Fed Chair Ben Bernanke and Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson kept saying the problems were contained to subprime.
They wanted to believe the narrative.
They did, and that narrative kept the bubble going far longer than it should have. The Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission later concluded the whole thing was avoidable, not inevitable. Avoidable.
Avoidable. Okay, that's the critical word. So if 2008 was avoidable, and it provides this template,
Right.
let's make the connection explicit.
Yeah.
How do these specific failures map onto AI today?
All right, this is where it gets really concerning. Let's start with opacity, the new black boxes.
Like the CDOs and the Gaussian copula being impossible to really understand.
Exactly like that. Think about modern deep learning systems, especially the huge foundational models. We're talking soon trillions of parameters. The reality is no one, not even the model creators, truly understands how the models are actually behaving internally.
They know the inputs, they see the outputs, but the middle is murky.
Extremely murky. They are black boxes, often by necessity due to their scale and complexity.
And that opacity, does it lead to a similar kind of blind faith?
It absolutely does. We call it automation bias. It's the modern echo of trusting the AAA rating.
How so?
Well, because an AI generates an output, maybe a prediction, a decision, a piece of analysis that looks precise, quantitative, sophisticated. People just assume it's objective.
Correct.
Better than human judgment.
We trust the machine
It's
implicitly.
a bit unwarranted trust, yeah. And crucially, we might stop asking the hard questions, stop applying critical human oversight. The human circuit breaker starts to disappear.
Okay, so opacity and automation bias. What else parallels 2008?
Algorithmic monoculture and herding.
Monoculture, meaning everyone using the same thing?
Pretty much. Remember how in 2008, so many banks were using similar risk models based on things like the Gaussian copula?
Right, so they all had the same blind spots.
Exactly. Well, today, we see a huge rush towards adopting the same few large foundational AI models trained on similar massive data sets like scraped internet data. This creates a convergence, an algorithmic monoculture.
But hang on, isn't the AI ecosystem more distributed? Lots of different companies, open source models. Is it really like a few big banks dominating?
That's a fair question, but the influence of a few major foundational models, think GPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, is becoming immense. They underpin countless applications. And bodies like the Financial Stability Board are already warning about this.
What are they saying?
They explicitly warn that AI model homogenization creates systemic banking risks. Why? Because it encourages herd behavior. If everyone's AI is built on the same foundation, trained on similar data,
They'll likely make similar decisions and potentially similar mistakes.
precisely, you get synchronized failures. If those core models have hidden flaws or biases or react unexpectedly to a new situation, everyone using them could fail simultaneously when a crisis hits. The correlation risk is huge.
Okay, that's a scary parallel. But there's one area where the analogy maybe isn't just parallel, it's worse, right? The speed.
Ah, yes, speed. This is where the AI risk potentially dwarfs 2008. That crisis unfolded over months, even years. We saw the cracks forming.
But an AI-driven crisis?
Could happen at machine speed, think minutes, seconds even. We already had a taste of this with the 2010 flash crash.
Right, automated trading algorithms went haywire.
And wiped out $1 trillion in market value in about 15 minutes. It showed how automated systems can amplify shocks incredibly fast, potentially faster than humans can react or even understand what's happening.
So an AI-fueled crisis could be the flash crash on steroids.
That's the fear. An acceleration and amplification of shocks far beyond our capacity to manage.
Okay, so if we take this template opacity, flawed trust, monoculture, speed, what might an actual AI subprime crisis look like? Can we sketch out some scenarios?
We can try. Based on these dynamics, we've thought about a few core possibilities. Let's call the first one Scenario A, financial market contagion at scale.
Like the flash crash example.
Exactly, but potentially much worse. Imagine not just trading algorithms, but AI portfolio managers, AI risk assessors, all using similar underlying models or data feeds.
Okay.
A particular trigger event occurs, maybe unexpected economic data, a geopolitical shock, even a flaw discovered in a widely used AI model.
And all the AIs react in the same way.
Simultaneously, triggering massive synchronized sell-offs across global markets, not just stocks, but bonds, currencies, commodities. A liquidity crisis that happens almost instantly, far deeper and faster than 2010, potentially freezing global finance.
Wow. Okay, that's one. What's scenario B?
Scenario B, algorithmic bias amplification. This is maybe less sudden, more insidious, but potentially just as damaging.
How does this work? Like the risk laundering in 2008?
Kind of. If AI systems become widely adopted for crucial societal functions, think credit scoring, hiring decisions, insurance underwriting, even law enforcement predictions.
Yeah, they're already being used there.
Right. And if these AIs are trained on historical data that reflects existing societal biases, or if they develop new biases through their learning process.
They could end up discriminating.
Yes, but systematically. They could institutionalize and amplify bias at a massive scale. Worse, through feedback loops, biased decisions generate data that reinforces the bias. It could become locked in, incredibly hard to root out, causing significant social and economic harm, especially to already marginalized groups.
A sort of automated systemic discrimination engine.
Potentially, yes. Scenario C is systemic dependency collapse.
Dependency collapse.
This is where critical infrastructure becomes deeply reliant on AI. Think energy grids, managing power flow, complex supply chains, optimizing logistics, financial payment systems, processing transactions.
We automate these for efficiency.
Of course. But what happens if these systems become so dependent on complex AI agents whose behavior in truly novel situations out of sample environments, as they say, is still poorly understood?
A glitch could take down the power grid.
Or halt global shipping. A failure in one critical AI system could trigger cascading failures across interconnected sectors. Imagine payment systems freezing or supply chains grinding to a halt because the controlling AI encounters something it wasn't trained for. Widespread economic fallout.
That sounds fragile.
Very fragile.
Yeah.
And it leads to the final scenario. D, loss of human control.
This sounds like science fiction almost.
Not necessarily full Skynet, it's more subtle. It's the risk of technological dependence or lock-in.
Meaning?
As organizations replace human expertise and judgment with AI for core tasks, risk management, strategic planning, even scientific discovery, they might gradually lose the human capacity to perform those tasks.
The skills atrophy?
Exactly. The institutional knowledge evaporates. So if a major AI system fails or its outputs become unreliable, the organization might find it literally cannot function or recover without it. It's not just a system outage. It's a potential permanent loss of capability, a knowledge cliff.
Okay. These scenarios are sobering, to say the least. It paints a picture where the parallels to 2008 aren't just academic, they're potentially predictive.
That's the concern. But like 2008, the message shouldn't just be fear. It should be about prevention.
Because the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission said 2008 was avoidable.
Precisely. And the tools to avoid or at least mitigate a potential AI crisis largely exist. We learned lessons from 2008. The urgency now is applying them before a crisis hits, not after.
So what are the actionable steps? What does learning from history look like here?
Well, first and foremost, mandate transparency, explainability, auditability, especially for high-stakes AI systems.
Tackle the black box problem head on.
Yes. The opacity of CDOs was fuel for the fire. We cannot let complex AI hide systemic risks. Think frameworks like the EU AI Act requiring clear documentation, risk assessment, and ways to understand why an AI makes a certain decision.
Okay, transparency first. What's second?
Rigorous testing. Way beyond standard software testing. Remember the Gaussian copula failed under stress?
Because its core assumptions broke down.
Right. We need continuous, robust stress testing for AI. That includes adversarial testing, deliberately trying to fool or break the AI, and, critically, coordinated failure simulations.
What does that mean? Testing multiple AIs together.
Yes. How do multiple AI systems, maybe from different vendors but relying on similar underlying tech, interact under crisis conditions? Do they amplify each other's errors? Do they create unforeseen negative feedback loops? We need to understand these systemic interactions.
So, test for individual failure and collective failure. Got it. Third,
Promote diversity and oversight. Actively encourage diversity in AI models, in training data, in development teams. Avoid the monoculture trap.
so we don't have everyone making the same mistake at the same time.
Exactly. And crucially, mandate human-in-the-loop requirements for critical decisions. A knowledgeable human needs to be able to understand, question, and potentially override an AI's decision, especially in high-risk areas.
The human circuit breaker.
The essential human circuit breaker. It stops correlated errors from cascading unchecked.
Makes sense. And the last point.
Adaptive governance. Technology, especially AI, moves incredibly fast. Static regulations written today might be obsolete tomorrow.
So the rules need to evolve.
They have to. We need regulatory frameworks that are designed to adapt. They need to take a systemic risk perspective, looking beyond individual AI models or companies to see the interconnections, the feedback loops, the emergent vulnerabilities across the entire ecosystem, like how financial regulators now look at system-wide stability, not just individual banks.
Okay, so transparency, rigorous testing, diversity and oversight, and adaptive governance. These seem like direct lessons from the failures of 2008.
They really are, and the central finding, when you put it all together, seems pretty clear. That architecture of systemic failure we saw in 2008, the opacity, the skewed incentives, the potential for rapid contagion, it's being replicated, consciously or not, within the AI ecosystem today.
But this time, we have the hindsight. We have the blueprint from 2008.
We do. We lack the excuse of ignorance that perhaps existed back in, say, 2005 or 2006.
Which really brings us back to that stark warning from the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission report.
Yeah, it's worth repeating. To accept that nothing could have been done about the 2008 crisis is to accept that it will happen again.
So we've laid out the parallels, the potential scenarios, the preventative measures, learned from history. We've seen the blueprint. We know the risks are there. And they seem to be accelerating with the pace of AI development.
The mechanisms are visible.
Which leaves the final, really provocative question for you, the listener. Do we, collectively, have the wisdom and the political will to actually implement these kinds of safeguards before an AI crisis potentially hits, and hits, as we've discussed, at machine speed?
That really is the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it?
It certainly is. This has been a critical deep dive connecting the past to the potential future of AI. Thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
If you want to explore more about how these real-world AI trends and applications are actually playing out, reshaping industries and our economy, please do subscribe to The Deep Dive wherever you get your podcasts.
Definitely worth doing.
And for more hands-on tutorials, deep dives into specific AI tools and concepts, you can also check out my YouTube channel. It's called Ian Ochieng AI. That's Ochieng. We go into a lot of the practical stuff there.
Great resource.
Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.